Okay, so we can see that our starter is ready. It has doubled in size. If you don't have a mason jar that has the marks on it, this is where you can put like a little sticker or a piece of tape or something. This is like a little book tab to be able to remind yourself when it doubles. So it's nice and bubbly. And so now we are able to use it. So whatever you want to make, whether it's focaccia bread or traditional sourdough bread or bagels or any of that kind of stuff, now's the time that you can use it. So what you want to do is get your scale out and make sure that it is on grams. Zero it out. Put your big glass bowl, or you can do a big silver mixing bowl, whichever one you want, but put that on there, zero it out. And then you're gonna add 50 grams of your starter. I'm gonna make a traditional sourdough bread. So you can see it's kind of stringy. Stringy but thick. Okay. All right, so now I have my 50 grams there. So then you're going to add 9 grams of sea salt. I use Celtic sea salt. It has more minerals in it and it's better for you. So that's the one that I choose to use. I also pre-measure this out because it's so small that if you get too much of it, it's really hard to take out of the starter because it just sticks in there. So pre-measure it out into a tiny little dish. So this is 9 grams of Celtic sea salt. You can add that in there. And then this part is important. So you're gonna grab purified water or filtered water, and then you're going to warm it up. And so it has to be warm to be able to help activate the yeast. So you don't want it scalding hot, but you also don't want it cold. So what I've kind of found is that I heat up, or I put water in that's almost to the top of my 1 cup here, my Pyrex, and then I heat it for between 30 and 45 seconds in the microwave. And you really kind of have to test it out yourself, and I just kind of dip my finger into it to make sure that it's not too hot. Everybody's microwave is a little bit different, so you just want to make sure that it's a good warm temperature. And while you're doing that, you can get a fork out. There are dough mixers. I don't have one, so I just use a fork. But you can get your fork out and get your bread flour out and ready, because we are going to be using that next. That's still a little cool. Put it on. So, perfect. So that was 50 seconds that I had it on there. So you don't need a thermometer or anything. Just stick your finger in it and you can feel that it's warm. And then what you're gonna do, make sure this is zeroed out, and you're gonna add 350 grams of water. And be careful because this goes really, really fast. So after I get to about 320, I start to go pretty slow. You can't, typically I end up taking a spoon and grabbing some of it out. Okay, 350. So this step then, after you have the starter in there, you have the Celtic salt, and you have your water, I just stir that all together so that that salt and starter is all mixed in with the water before I add the bread flour. It just helps to make sure that, you know, it's all kind of, there's no clumpiness of the salt in your bread. It's more evened out. All right, once you're happy with that, then I put it right back on my scale here. Again, it's important, make sure you zero it out. I've forgotten to do that step, and that was difficult. I had to redo it. So zero that out. And now your bread flour, it's important to use unbleached bread flour. So I get a big bag of it from Sam's Club. It's blue and it's unbleached bread flour. So you're gonna put in 500 grams of the flour. And I kind of start to mound this just because if I do go over, it's a lot easier for me to be able to take some out if I have it mounded. That was actually pretty good, 490. Put a little more in there. Great. Okay, and so also something to know, if you hit 501, it's okay. Like you don't have to be, that doesn't have to be like spot on perfect. So if you're at 501, like don't worry about it. 502, don't worry about it. So it's okay. All right. So now this part, we're gonna stir in the bread flour as much as you can with the fork first to kind of get that water mixed in there with the bread flour. But you are gonna get a little bit messy. So you do wanna make sure that that it is, or that you're ready to get messy with maybe taking your rings off. I know that's something that I always do too, because you want to, you'll see that it's kind of stringy and it's not all mixed in. So you want to be able to get all of that flour in. So because of how sticky it is on your fingers, I take my rings and jewelry off. Otherwise, I have found that it has stuck to them and it is a pain to get off. So just try to mix in all of that other flour on the side of the bowl. And like I kind of am squeezing to get all of that mixed in with the dough. So it's kind of a squeeze and twist of the wrist to be able to just mix that all in. It's a little bit of a workout. And if you make bagels, it's even more of a workout of getting this part mixed in. So that's why when I do bagels, I actually use a stand-up mixer because it's so thick. So now you can see it's all mixed in and it's all stringy and clumpy on my hand. So I just take my fork and then I just kind of scrape off the rest of that stuff as much as I can. And something to know too, like, is that you want to try to actually get this stuff off before putting it down the drain, especially if, you know, you don't have city, if you're on septic. You might want to really try even more harder to get that off. So, okay, so now it's in kind of like a clump here. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a rag and you're going to get your rag or your cloth wet. You wanna get it nice and damp. It's not gonna be soaking wet that it's dripping. So you wanna, but you do want it to be fully wet and then just squeeze out the excess water. Okay? And then you're going to cover it. So cover your dish and let it sit. You're gonna put a timer on for 30 minutes. So you're gonna let it rest for 30 minutes covered. Make sure if it is during the winter or if you live in a colder region that you don't put it near an outside wall because it's typically colder and you need it to be about 70 degrees, which is optimal. So you wanna kind of put it in more in the middle of your kitchen if possible. So we're just gonna let that rest now for the next 30 minutes. Okay, so after you're done and you're waiting for the 30 minutes, you can decide what you want to do with the remainder of your starter. So you can use it to make another loaf of bread. You can use it to make some bagels or whatever you want, as long as you have enough grams of it. If you feel like you're not gonna use it anymore, you have two options. You can choose to refeed it. So maybe you wanna make some stuff tomorrow. You can refeed that, again, adding your 2 tablespoons of this into a clean jar, adding a half a cup of all-purpose flour, a pinch of wheat flour, and a 1/4 cup of room temperature water. So that's refeeding it. And then you can also, if you don't feel like you're going to use it or you don't want to refeed it right now, you don't plan on using it tomorrow, you can put a metal canning lid over top of it and put it into the refrigerator. So that will keep it actually for quite some time. In the refrigerator, it basically kind of goes dormant. So that's another option as well. I usually keep a couple of these going at one time, or not going, but a couple of these in my refrigerator at one time, just in case I mess up. I don't lose my starter because I have backup. So that's always an option for you to do if you want to store this for a little bit in between. So again, make sure if you are storing it in the refrigerator to have a canning cap and to have the metal part of this put onto the cap. So that way it doesn't dry out. That's what's really important. I have done that before where I just put this back on top and sealed it that way and then put it in the fridge, completely forgot about it. And when I pulled it out to reuse it again, it was all dried out. So it was completely ruined. So do make sure that the whole canning top is on there with the metal so that it doesn't dry out for you. So then you can leave it in the refrigerator for, you can leave it in there for a while. I've left it in there for, a week or two before I've used it again. If you do that, sometimes you'll see like a little separation in between with the water, and you can just stir that back in. If you let it sit for a longer period of time, you might get some kind of gray hue liquid, and if that happens, again, you can stir it right back in there, or if it kind of like squeezes you, then you can take some of it out and put it into the trash. But I just stir it right back in there. So, okay, so I hear the timer going off and we are going to do our next step here. All right, so our dough has had an opportunity to grow, and you can kind of see that it has doubled in size. So now we are ready to move to the next step. So you can choose to not put anything in it, but one of our family's favorites is to actually do a sun-dried tomato and mozzarella. So I'm gonna actually fill that or put that in our dough. You can also choose to do roasted garlic or olives I've done. So it's totally up to you what you want to put in it. I've done jalapenos and cheddar cheese. There's lots of different things out there that you can put in, but I'm gonna do the sun-dried tomatoes and the mozzarella cheese. So in order to do this is our second stretching. So if you remember, we did our first stretching a while back, and now we're gonna do our second stretching, but before we stretch it, we're gonna put a little bit of cheese in it, and then we're going to put some of the tomatoes. So just kind of sprinkle that around. And then you're gonna take it, and at your 12 o'clock, just like we did last time, stretch it out
and then wrap it and pull it around. And you want to kind of get these edges to be like closed so that the insides don't fall out. Then you're going to do some more cheese. And some more tomatoes. And then you're gonna go to your 3 o'clock and you're gonna pull, stretch, and then you're going to make sure that it kind of, that you get the edges over here so that nothing falls out. Same over here and over here. You wanna try to keep all that yummy goodness inside of it. Put some more cheese. Put some more stuff inside, some more tomatoes. I've done rosemary too. Rosemary is really yummy in it as well. Gonna get some of this cheese that's fallen out a little bit. Take it at your 6 o'clock now, stretch it out, and wrap it around, shove that back in there. Again, make sure that your edges are kind of closed up there. Flatten it out a little bit. Stretch it out, wrap it, and just kind of make sure that that's all tucked in, all closed on all the edges so that nothing comes out. And then you're going to take your bench scraper and you're just going to kind of tuck everything underneath. So because you have the flour on your surface ahead of time, it helps so that nothing gets kind of stuck on there. And you're just kind of folding everything down. And if you see anything that kind of pops out, you want to just try to squish it back together. Okay, after you do that, then you're going to take your little, it kind of reminds me of like a little bassinet, but you're going to take it, make sure that it's floured on the inside of it, and you're just going to plop your dough right inside of there. And we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes. So you're gonna actually cover it with its little topper. And then let it sit for a half hour. Put your timer on for 30 minutes. And then we'll let this sit and we'll come back as soon as it's done. All right, our timer went off. So we are going to finish up our dough here. We're gonna flip over the dough that was in the baneton. And it looks pretty good. And then we're going to take our razor blade, and we can actually put any type of design in here that you want to. I'm just gonna do something really simple. I'm not gonna get too fancy here. You don't wanna go too deep with these. I've done this a couple of times and actually gone like too deep. I just kind of really put the edge in and just kind of ever so gently kind of glide it at an angle down. And then it will be ready to go in. Some people get pretty fancy with this part. I do not. All right, and then I've put it onto this kind of, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like, it basically helps it so it doesn't stick to the bottom of my dish. So I put it in then this way because it's going to be easier for me to grab out of the dish when it's done. So this is a cast iron baking dish. So I'm going to put it in. I had already set the oven for 450 degrees. So I'm going to grab this and put it in, and it's going to go in for 45 minutes with the lid on. So put your timer on for 45 minutes. At the end of those 45 minutes, then all you're going to do is take that lid off and put it on for another 5 minutes. So it'll be in the oven for a total of 50 minutes. And then once the whole thing is done, then we'll take it out and we'll see how it came out. Okay, so timer is done. So we'll turn that off and we'll take our Dutch oven out of the oven. We grab a hold of our silicone baking, kind of shake it off a little bit onto our cooling rack so that it can continue to cool. And we'll let it sit, but there is our finished sourdough bread. That is tomato and mozzarella stuff.